Another Friday, guys, and another true crime stories with Sal. Hi, you guys. Welcome. Välkomna. Добро пожаловать. My name is Salmanza Rogers, and every Friday I'm here for you to sit down, make yourself cozy, grab your beverage of choice, slip into some silk pajama, and make yourself as comfy as possible while listening to my story. Today's story is another tragic case that could have been prevented if was dealt with earlier. Again, could have, would have, should have, But yeah, these cases never gets easier or lighter. Yeah, today's case is definitely not a light topic. Just a quick content warning and a disclaimer. The story today that I'm talking about, it involves abuse towards a woman, sexual abuse, torture, rape, murder. And again, the characters, the story 100% real, the characters' names or the people in the story, the victim and the perpetrator, I have changed due to privacy and respect for the victim's family and the victim, of course. So with all of that being said, let's dive into today's story. Today's story is about a couple that I'm going to name Diana and Earl. And today's story is taking place in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, to be specific. And the years are between 1986 and 1988. Diana, who is 36 and recently broke up with her long-term boyfriend, is being invited to a double date with her best friend. She doesn't know the guy that she's about to double date with. It's her best friend's boyfriend's best friend. But she have heard good things about him. She knows that he's a little older than her. That doesn't bother Diana. And, she, again, just broke up with her long-term boyfriend. And before that, she also had a marriage that fell apart. So she was kind of like not giving up on love, but she was not, afraid of taking risks, chances, meet other people, mingle, be out there having fun. Worst case scenario, if a guy were boring, she just had a good time with her best friend and her boyfriend, The blind date that Diana was set up with was Earl, a 50-year-old middle-aged man. He seemed to have his, quote unquote, shit together. He had money, he had a boat, he had a house. He looked well established and also well put together, and kind of that was very intriguing for Diana. Before that, she kind of dated men in her own age or a little bit older than her, but this is a 14 plus or 14, my math do me correctly now, 14-year gap between them. So this is like a first time she dates someone older. And the date seemed to be heading towards the right direction. Soon after the blind date, Earl and Diana kept in touch and they start going on dates of their own. Earl always seemed to know how to impress Diana. One date he took her out on a boat ride with his own boat. He always sent her flowers to her work and always make her feel special. You know how we women, we always want that attention. We always want to feel that we're special and, like always be surprised, small surprises here and then. And that exactly what Diana got from Earl. But the more Diana and Earl start dating, the more Diana's family and close friends start kind of like disliking Earl. They start notice some weird small things about him. To them, he seemed too possessive of Diana. He seemed too controlling. He always constantly had to know where she was, what time she's going to come home, who she was with, sometimes even calling her at work. To her, it seemed like, he was just checking up on her, see how her day was going, to kind of like tell her that I miss you, think of you, what have you. But again, the family didn't seem the same thing that Diana was seeing in Earl. 2 months into their dating, Earl proposed to Diana and she said yes. And after a few months of being engaged, Earl started to be more sexually demanding. He felt like Diana was too mellow in bed. She was not, you know, inventive enough for him, and she always kind of like had the same routine and didn't want to spice things up. He even suggested a threesome at one point, and Diana turned out no right away. It was not her thing. Even with Diana's previous relationships, her marriage and then her long-term boyfriend, Diana was never like a sex freak. She didn't see the importance of, sex. She was sexually active with her partners, but she was like more modest and kept it classic. She didn't seem to have the need or care to experiment with toys or different people, have threesomes or like do different like bondage type of thing. And that's exactly what Earl was all about. He was all into experimenting, being the dominant one, doing some bondage and, all of that stuff. So Diana soon start realizing that maybe her and Earl was not a good match after all. They were completely two different people who had completely different priorities and views of what a marriage or relationship was all about. What particular incident that Diana recalled, she was in bed sleeping, and all of a sudden she wakes up and Earl is standing above her, and he has this cloth in his hand, and this cloth is a reeking smell of chloroform. And she's looking up at him and is like, "What are you doing?" To which Earl responds that, "Oh, you were complaining of not being able to go to sleep, so I just brought this cloth with a little chloroform to make you fall asleep quicker." I don't know about you, but that sounds super alarming to me. All of these incidents, Diana confided in her brother's wife, so her sister-in-law. And she also told her sister-in-law that at some point she just gave in when Earl, he was basically too demanding and, wanted her to do certain acts. So she kind of like said yes just to please him. But in the reality of it, she was not comfortable and didn't like it, and it was way out of her comfort zone. With Earl being more and more demanding in bed and kind of like almost forceful, it really put a toll on Diana and Earl's relationship to the point that she basically stopped having sex with him. And she randomly one day ran into her long-term boyfriend. Let's call him Peter for the sake of the story. And so she's also kind of confided in Peter about her relationship and all of the things that Earl was, wanting, demanding from Diana, and kind of like, made her feel super uncomfortable and used and, just being, very, very uncomfortable. And after a while, both Peter and Diana starting to come up with a plan of how she would eventually leave Earl, because this was starting to get more and more aggressive, and it's not a healthy relationship. She doesn't deserve this. She definitely doesn't have to do anything against her will. No one does. No one have to do anything against their will just to please their partner. Eventually, Diana did just that. She broke up with Earl and told him that, they need to go their separate ways and that this relationship doesn't work out for her anymore. By this point, we probably all know where this is headed. Earl got super duper offended. how dare she? How could she break up with him? Who the F is she breaking up with him after all he have done to her, after everything he introduced her to? And yeah, he basically became just enraged and full of hate of Diana. And in his eyes and in his mind, Diana need to pay big time. So Earl contacted his former ex-girlfriend. And just a side note, we don't know if this ex-girlfriend of Earl's, if he saw her on the side when he was engaged to Diana, or if this is something that he was dating this girl before he met Diana, or what have you, or yeah, we don't know that. But he contacted his ex and he told her the story that this woman broke his heart and he needed to teach her a lesson. And his ex agreed to help him. So for the next few days, they carefully conducted this plan. Earl even made a checklist of all the things that he's going to, quote unquote, teach Diana. And they also dug a grave right outside Earl's ex-girlfriend's home for being used later. On September 23rd, 1988, Diana contacted Earl to tell him that she had some jewelry of his that she wanted him, to have. She wanted to return some of his jewelry. And Earl agreed to meet her. He said, great, perfect, let's meet up. Can you pick me up at this and such address? And she did. Diana picked him up, and right as she was about to hand him the jewelry, he asked her, before we part ways, can you just drop me off at one of my friends' house? I need to pick up something from there as well. And Diana said, okay, sure, let's go. Where does this friend of yours live? He gave her the address, and they both drove off in Diana's car. Once they arrived at the friend's house, Earl then pulled out a gun and aimed it towards Diana, told her to get out of the car, and she did. Then he said, go into the house. She walked up the steps, and the door was unlocked. They walked in the house, and Earl closed the door behind him. He then ordered Diana to take off her clothes while still holding the gun towards her. And after she took off the clothes, Earl then tied her up on this glass coffee table. While all of this was happening, Earl's ex-girlfriend and the person who this house belongs to, she started filming it, recording it on her VHS camera. Earl then took out his list and started to mark off each thing that he wrote that he's going to do to Diana. For the next few hours, Diana was brutally beaten, sexually tortured, sodomized, and basically raped in any possible way you can imagine. This was a sick and twisted idea of Earl's to basically teach Diana to be less of a prude in bed and more sexually open to experiment in all different areas of sex. And just a reminder, the ex-girlfriend, she filmed all of it. And at some point, she actually even joined in on certain sex acts with Earl and poor Diana. After Earl was done with his sick and twisted torture, he then shot Diana, and they both buried her in the grave that they dug up for her behind the ex-girlfriend's house. Now the charade started. Earl contacted Diana's mother to tell her that she never showed up for their meeting. They're supposed to meet up with each other, but she never showed up, and he was afraid that something might have happened to her because she's always been a woman of her word. If she says she's going to show up, she would. If not, she would contact you and tell you that she can't come or reschedule or what have you. A long and painful investigation started. Painful, of course, for Diana's mother, Diana's brother, sisters, and close friends, because they all knew who, if anything would happen to Diana, they all knew who would do something, to harm her or, God forbid, kill her. Diana's sister-in-law went to the lead detective who was handling Diana's case, and she told him about all of the things that Diana had confided in her, all about the sexual things that Earl was demanding from Diana, the chloroform incident, and other abusive and violent situation that Diana been dealing with while together with Earl. And from the get-go, Earl was the main suspect in Diana's case, because it's always, every time a missing woman or a missing man, they always suspect the spouse, the husband, the wife, or what have you, girlfriend, boyfriend. So after hearing the Diana's brother's wife, sister-in-law's story, their suspicions even raised higher, and they brought Earl in for questioning. They offered him to clear his name, basically, in front of a grand jury, to tell his story and to prove that to them that he was innocent, had nothing to do with Diana's disappearance. And during this, Earl actually mentioned his ex-girlfriend. And before that, they didn't even know that he had an ex-girlfriend, or that he had an ex-girlfriend that he was so close to and still kept in contact with. So police brought this woman in for questioning, this woman that Earl claimed to be his ex-girlfriend. And after a few hours of questioning, she cracked and she started spilling the beans. She told the police everything from what they did, that they did it in her house, that she took photos and videos of the incident, and that they buried her dead body outside behind her house. Police quickly went to the murder site. They found Diana's decomposed body. The autopsy clearly showed that she'd been abused violently and tortured, but they couldn't find any physical evidence such as fingerprints, semen, hair fibers of any sorts, because the body, again, was very deeply decomposed by this point. Both Earl and his ex-girlfriend was charged for the murder of Diana, and a trial began in 1991. It was a very lengthy trial. I'm not gonna go into full detail of this trial, and of course, it's not going to be a good justice was served type of trial. No. So you see, at this trial, the ex-girlfriend, she was the so-called main witness to, she agreed to testify against Earl, and for that she would receive a lesser charge. So she agreed, but this is 1991, and apparently in the jurors' eyes, this ex-girlfriend, she was wearing inappropriate clothes. First of all, she came with a mini skirt on the court date, and she was laughing, telling her side of the story. She didn't seem like she was remorseful or that she cared, which is pretty effed up, of course. But I feel like the clothing part should not play any role in, the judgment of if, the person's telling the truth or not. But of course, her behavior was unacceptable. And also, it was a word that they mistook. Instead of site, they thought that they were talking about safe. So, because of the word mispronunciation, the revealing clothing of the witness, and the witness's just demeanor and the laughter, and not taking this seriously, Earl was actually acquitted. And the jurors decided that the ex-girlfriend was the one that orchestrated all of this, and she was the main person. She was this jealous girlfriend that eventually killed Diana. Of course, this was a huge blow to the defense team, and the lawyer had to write a written apology to Diana's family of, like, he was disbelieved that this even happened, that Earl was a free man, basically. Even though they found a body, even though they had a witness, he was a free man. In the jurors' eyes, he didn't do anything. A little quick side note that I feel like it's kind of interesting because, again, all this story is 100% true. And at this point, one of my closest sources actually lived in Louisville, Kentucky, and have seen Earl walking the street of Louisville like nothing happened, like he didn't do anything. A few years after the trial, that was in 1991, so a few years after that, the ex-girlfriend's house was purchased by someone else, and they start rebuilding. Maintenance workers came across a paper bag, and inside of this paper bag, it was kind of stuffed into the ceiling, kind of like in a hidden compartment in the ceiling, and it was like taped all around it, and it was in a plastic bag. And once he opened it, he saw some film rolls, and he went and developed those film rolls. Those were the film and photos taken of Earl and Earl's ex-girlfriend torturing, murdering, and raping Diana. The photos were quickly sent to the police, and after reviewing all of the photos and the video, they, of course, realized that all along it was Earl. Earl was the master mind behind this cruel, evil, torturous murder. And but unfortunately, since he got acquitted, and the double jeopardy law, which I think it's, I don't know, stupid law, I guess. I mean, basically, it's you cannot be charged for the same murder twice. If you already got acquitted the first time, they can't charge you again. But they can charge him for perjury. And that's exactly what they did, basically because he was lying in court and not telling them the truth of what really happened. So I believe he got 10 years for perjury. I mean, 10 years is a slap on the wrist, if you ask me, compared to what he did to poor Diana. But you see, karma is a wise old lady that always going to serve you the same type of tea that you have served others. And I feel like that's exactly what happened to our dear friend Earl. On the evening of September 1st, 2008, Earl, an old man at this point, he accidentally fell. Listen to this. So he accidentally fell onto his glass coffee table. He cut himself pretty badly, and he passed away. Now, allegedly, it's the same coffee table that he bound, tortured, and raped Diana on. So if that allegedly is true, karma did her thing. Karma did her thing. And even so, whatever that maybe was Diana's spirit. I don't know if you believe in that, but whatever happened that night of September 1st, 2008, I feel like Earl got what he deserved. Another side note, they later interviewed a neighbor of Earl's, and he could hear him moaning and screaming and calling for God to take him. And at least now we know that he suffered. And that, my good people, is the awful story of this cruel, disgusting human by the name of Earl, who got exactly what he deserved. He should have came earlier, but again, everyone has their own time, and he left this earth in pain and agony, exactly the same pain and agony that he inflicted on his ex-fiancée. Poor Diana, rest in peace. God bless her soul. I'm pretty sure she's in a much better place now. What can we take away from this story? It's, again, another tragic case. And I feel like, like I said earlier, whether you're a woman dating a man, or a man dating a woman, or a man dating a man, or a woman dating a woman, whatever the case may be, it's one thing to kind of like, wanting to please your partner, whatever, if it's sexual or just, with gifts or trips or cooking something nice. But when it comes to something that you truly don't want to do, and you feel like you're being pressured by your partner doing, and the partner is kind of like playing the, not the victim, but the guilt game, putting guilt on you if you don't do that, like making you feel guilty, and how could you not want to do that, other people doing that, or whatever the case may be. Go by your gut feeling. If your body and everything in your being screaming, no, that's way out of my comfort zone, I don't want to do it, don't do it. That person is not for you. Again, no one should be forced to be doing stuff that they are not comfortable with. So I said it before, say it again. Take care of yourself, practice self-love, put yourself first, okay? Because at the end of the day, no one else cares for you like you care for you. So stay safe. There's plenty of fish in the sea that can meet your needs, or, match you perfectly. You don't have to be with that abusive partner. That's not a partner. That's just a criminal in my eyes. So that's it for today's story. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, leave some comments and be respectful in the comment section, because you never know who's reading or listening, watching my stories. You never know if it's someone, a loved one, or a friend of the victim. So be respectful always. If you would not say that to your grandma, don't put it in comments, okay? Just think before you write. If you have any story suggestions, leave comments below. If you want to follow me on Instagram or TikTok, you can find a link down below as well in the description box. And other than that, I hope you guys stay safe, practice safe love, always love yourself, stay safe, and I'll see you guys next Friday, Halloween. Ciao Cacao!